It's Thursday, July 28th, 2011. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, horror.
Let's do this. So when you're biking around, one of the necessary accessories is the bottle of water.
Or the Camelback.
Well, the Camelback is for a long bike.
Know what you need to do, and I'm ordering a second one. You need one like big Camelback for when you're going on like some long journey. But they also make really little ones that only hold like a liter, but they're basically just like the best form factor for biking.
Why would you get only I don't get whatever. If I'm only going to work, I only need a bottle of water. I don't need a Camelback.
You can't just hold out that 20 minutes to get to work.
It's good to have water.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had this basically really cheapo water bottle from the bike shop. That was the cheapest possible water bottle.
So
you
full
can
of PHBs and all that.
I don't know, but it was, it was fine. But it was not very well insulated. The water, if I put an ice cube in it and I walked outside, the ice cube would no longer be an ice cube. And I was like, oh, it's disappointing. So I went on Amazon like I do. And I was looking at the highest rated water bottles that fit in bicycles. So I saw the Camelback Podium Big Chill 25 ounce, right? And that's the one I got. There were some other ones that look really good, though. There's this bottle called the Clean Bottle. Get this. You ready? Genius. You can open it from the bottom also to clean it.
Ah.
Genius. There was also this very popular one. It was like the Polar something that was incredibly well insulated. But I got this Camelback one because while it was 5-star rated, just like the Polar one. But even though it had less total ratings, but it had some amount of insulation, but not amazing insulation, but some. And you didn't open on the bottom, obviously. But the nozzle on the top, right, it wasn't the usual Camelback one with the biting like I have at work at my desk. It was a kind where water can't get out unless you squeeze it. And you can actually twist it to lock it completely. So there's no way water can get out. And actually, that was a problem I had where, like, with the crappy water bottles, you hit bumps in the street and water would go psh, psh.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never had that happen, even with crappy bottles.
It's a really crappy bottle. It's basically open. So this one really closes, and water will not come out unless, like, you suck on it or squeeze it or something.
The 50-cent water bottles in any bike store don't leak.
This was the 50-cent bottle, and it leaks.
Doesn't it have, like, the bit that you just bite and, like, pull open?
No, it's not yeah, you pull it. And the thing is, when you push it back in to close it, it doesn't 100% close.
For 50 cents, you could have gotten another one that worked.
I'm just saying. It was mostly for the insulation that I ordered.
And you could have wrapped it in some rags.
Yeah, so I ordered this mostly for the insulation, but, the nozzle that was fancy was an added bonus.
Does this fascinating story go anywhere?
Yeah, I'm going to be setting it up for no reason.
There's a lot of setup, so there'd better be a lot of payoff.
So I went to the post office this morning, and there it was, because, they gave me the orange slip, the pink slip, whatever. I got it. I filled it up with water.
Here's an aside. I had a crazy dream where I moved to an apartment that didn't have a doorman, and all my packages disappeared.
Okay.
Like every package that came disappeared.
So I got it at the post office. I filled it up with water. The water didn't taste like plastic or anything, even though I didn't even clean the bottle at all. It was great. And then I put ice cubes in it. I walked outside, and they were still ice cubes. I could hear them banging around in there. And that little nozzly thing on the top totally worked. Not bullshit. It's actually really, really cool.
Did you lose the water bottle?
The water bottle was too big by a little bit. It was too big.
That's the saddest story.
It was a little too big for, it's basically, it was like 1.5 times as long as a usual bike water bottle. So I stuck it in there, and I was sort of careful on the way to work, and it got to work just fine. But then on the way home from work, I was biking.
Did it fall off and roll like off the Queensboro Bridge or something?
I was just, I filled it up at work.
Yeah.
Put it in the little holder, waited for the elevator, got in the elevator, started biking to work, biking home.
And it was gone?
Well, not even home, biking here. I was biking here, and then on 2nd Avenue, I looked down, and it's not there.
Somebody might have stolen it.
And I remembered at one point hearing, like, I had a memory of hearing a noise of clunk sploosh, but I don't know when. It could have been in the elevator. It could have been at work. It might still be at work. It could have been on 49th Street under a car's wheel. It could have been anywhere. So it was only $12.
Oh, to be fair, if it was clunk sploosh, it clearly was not.
It could have been clunk sploosh in
airtight.
the elevator.
But no, the sploosh is the part I'm pointing
But this
out.
is just the memory. The memory could be totally wrong.
Are you sure you even bought the water bottle?
Absolutely.
You sure you didn't dream it?
Here's an Amazon page. It says right here, you can see it. Instant order update for Scott Rubin. You purchased this item on July 20th. View this order. So I'm not going to buy that one again because it's too big. It won't fit on any bike. It's too long. I might just go buy another cheapo one. But if you need a water bottle and you don't care that it's long, or maybe, I have the kind of water bottle holder that goes on like the frame in the front. Some people have the kind. You ever see the dual wheeled under the seat bike bottle holders?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have one of those, that's basically more like a cup holder for a car, then 2 of these will probably be pretty awesome.
My mountain bike, I used to always carry. I had a water bottle thing upward on the in the inside of the frame, and then another one hanging off the top of the frame for 2.
Yeah, you could do 2 that way, but this is the ones I've seen are like the behind the seat dual wheeled. That would definitely be able to hold this motherfucker. But the other thing is, though, the insulation was not the greatest, right? There's other bottles out there that have insulation that is like ridiculously amazing. Like I've seen insulated bottles so good, they're like igloos. You could put ice in there, leave it in a hot car, come get it out of the hot car after work, and there'll still be ice in there.
So how thick is that insulation? How much water can you fit in there with it simultaneously not being too fat to stick in your bike?
Yeah, usually those ones are the kind where it's like metal and then air and then insulation and then air and then metal, and they're kind of fat.
Yeah, I honestly don't see the point, though, because warm water is more pleasant to drink when you're exercising.
Warm water tastes like blah.
You've never exercised.
Warm water's nasty. Who wants to drink warm water? Ugh.
So independently, I felt kind of stupid. I saw some Japanese video the other day. It was like how to cool down a hot car
That was a good video.
as fast as possible.
I like that video.
And I thought, all right, what are they going to do? Like pour water over it? And then he rolls down the passenger side window, and I'm like, oh, all right, duh. And then he opens the driver's side door and slams it shut without opening the window and does it like 5 times. And they demonstrably reduce the temperature by a surprising degree.
Yeah, because you basically just suck all the hot air out and suck all the cold air from outside the car in.
Yeah.
Here's the problem, though.
I'm glad that I learned this now in a day when I no longer own a car.
While the thing is that strategy is sort of false, right? Because yes, it will decrease the air temperature of inside the car, and then you can start the air conditioner afterwards, and you'll be better off. But I really don't have a problem with hot air in the car. That doesn't bother me, even though it will save you on the air conditioning.
You're going to complain about the hot seats.
Hot seats, and more importantly, hot buckles that burn your hand when you try to put your seatbelt on. Hot steering wheels, also a problem.
You get one of those reflecty things and put it in the car.
That's preventing the car from getting hot,
Yeah.
not cooling it down. That's 2 different strategies.
Yeah, but you've already failed if you have to cool it down.
I'm just saying. But yeah, you should do the cool down thing anyway, even if you look stupid, because the air conditioning will do less work and you'll save gas and such and such.
Yeah. So I want to talk about this briefly because it's making the rounds and it does kind of involve My Little Pony. But
Great ponies.
a lot of people have been talking, and even some semi-legitimate old world journalists, about how Hasbro's handling of the My Little Pony franchise is possibly the most powerful argument for expanded fair use laws we have ever seen.
No.
Because the creative explosion that has come out, like, other properties are just as mash-upable, but because the people...
Well, it is slightly more conducive to mash-uppery.
It is, but at the same time...
Anything live action is slightly less conducive just by its very
for
nature.
example, shows a lot of things that are on Hulu, especially like Archer, some of these animated shows, are pretty mash-upable in a similar way.
Yep.
But yet the properties are so locked down and people get shut down for even like sharing anything about them so much that nothing really happens.
This
even
is why
though-
there's articles about ponies on every single site in the universe, even Slashdot, right?
And
but
think way
meanwhile,
back.
Archer, where are there articles about Archer? Maybe on Cartoon Brew. That's
Now,
about it.
some people have argued that maybe it's just because it's ponies.
No.
I don't know. The fact that we're watching ponies.
Yeah, think about this. If a good show, I'm not the ponies aren't a good show.
No.
But I'm saying, let's say, for example,
They're on a different continuum.
yeah, let's say, for example, that The Simpsons, right, wasn't so jerky about taking all their clips off the internets, right? Well, everyone would just be mashing up Simpsons. We wouldn't have to resort to mashing up ponies.
Do you know how often I would post Peter going, if I could just do that and get away with it without the videos just disappearing on me?
I know, right?
But
Instead, we use Trollface. Hey.
But it is interesting that My Little Pony was the one, and Hasbro in the beginning had no idea. They were just like they.
Oops.
As soon as they saw YouTube, they're like, "What?" And there were takedown notices everywhere, and then that stopped. And the real kicker was when Hasbro started making their own stuff that is surprisingly similar to the kinds of things the fans were making.
I mean, I'm not gonna buy any of their shitty toys.
Not yet, because the toys are
they're too
shitty.
shitty. But I will buy a shitty toy under one circumstance.
It's Rainbow Dash.
No, it's dirt. There's already a shitty Rainbow Dash. I'm not gonna buy that because 2 people gave me free shitty Rainbow Dashes. I will buy a shitty Derpy Hooves, no matter how shitty, just to show them, right, that it's fair use is a good idea.
But in general, this is
because what Derpy Hooves symbolizes.
For all of you
worth
out
the
there
money.
who argue with people who don't get it or who argue against fair use, the ponies are probably a really strong argument you can use against these people. Just go on YouTube and find like one of those great videos someone's
all
made.
this stuff about intellectual property here is old news. We've said it a billion times. We've been saying it for over a decade.
Yeah, the only difference is
I
that
want
we
to show
have something here right now that is such a great example of why we need better laws.
Here's a better argument to make, right? Here's a better argument to make using this evidence. You ready? So ponies, fair use, right? Because they have gone the fair use route, they're getting way more popular, right? They're making all this extra money off this thing that they otherwise wouldn't, right? The fair use is beneficial in the market. And
but here's the trouble. Fair use is so ephemeral and so poorly defined.
Hold on, it's right? But meanwhile, regardless of the law, right? Wouldn't that mean...
Okay, so you're saying fair use, not in terms of the precedent of law in this country,
right,
but as in a fair use of an intellectual property.
No, what I'm saying is, look, one company has decided to let people go nuts, and it's giving them more money. Other companies that don't decide to do this are making less money. So shouldn't the market correct? And despite whatever the law is, wouldn't therefore that money encourage more companies to go the Hasbro route? More companies have not gone the Hasbro route, which is evidence that the market doesn't really work that way, does it?
No.
So when people say the invisible hand, well, invisible hand's taking a nap.
I disagree. I think it's a little more subtle than that.
Invisible hand's taking a nap.
I think what's happening here is that it's a prisoner's dilemma on a mass scale of all the media producers. Because what have we always complained about, and what a lot of nerds complain about? The long tail and all that doesn't really factor into markets, because catering to the kind of real market as exists destroys the market for the things that actually make these companies money now.
You got to do both at the same time.
Because
it's
what
not
is
that
popular?
hard.
No, it is, because what is popular? Things that tend to be pushed onto people and tend to be marketed in a certain way, and then the restrictions on use, and then the selling of products, they make more money from that than they would make with the fair use in the long run if everything was fair use, because it's kind of like Nintendo, where if you drive the price down to where people are more willing to pay $1 for Angry Birds than $40 for 2 Angry Birds on the DS.
You don't understand. You have to. There is an easy way to do it where you can hit the nerds, right, and get all their monies, and you can also hit the normal people and get the normal people monies.
Let all non-commercial use just flourish on the internet.
Right. For example, right, you could be Apple. Could enable, right, just add one checkbox deep in the settings that says enable sideload. And every nerd would use an iPhone because they could get all the user interface and load whatever the apps they want without jailbreaking. And no normal person would ever do that or figure out how to do it. And they would continue to dump all their money into the App Store. And Apple would get both markets. They would have the nerds and the normal people.
And look at what Hasbro's doing. They're making nods toward this fan base. They're letting all this awesome fair use just kind of happen.
They let We Love Fine license pony T-shirts, and they're making pony T-shirts for bronies, and they also make pony coloring books in Target at the same time. It's like, and you know what? Some of the nerds still buy the normal shit even though they know it's shitty. It's this weird thing that nerds do is like they'll go for the nerdy thing that only nerds want, like a $500 statue. But
not even a statue. It's usually just a bust.
Here's a perfect example, right? So you have Spider-Man. Spider-Man appeals to the masses and also to the nerds. The comic books, only nerds will buy those.
Yep.
Spider-Man movie, normal people see it. Nerd also goes to see Spider-Man movie. Even if it's a shitty one, Spider-Man fan can't help but go to it.
What's interesting is that Spider-Man fan does not go to turn off the dark.
No, that's maybe he does. It's actually a lot of people go to see it.
I think
I don't know why.
I think only tourists go to see it
a
because
lot of people
everybody
go to
else
see
knows
it.
better.
I don't know why they do, but they do.
Everybody else knows better, but the tourists don't know.
But anyway, the point is you can hit both markets. But if you push
no.
out
This is where I
want to
get back to my
market,
point. You can't if I hit both markets, that's fine. If everybody hits both markets, fast forward a generation or two, and the free fair use nerd market becomes mainstream because everybody else starts to catch up.
No, I see. That's right. It won't cause that to happen. That is an inevitability.
I don't think it is.
I
because
think it's
people are too
inevitability,
easily
and if
manipulated.
you don't go for both markets now, then you stay in the mainstream market. Then when that happens, when the free use nerd market is the only market, you'll have nothing. You have to hit both now. That way you'll be prepared for the nerd only future.
I think the media companies actually believe that they can keep the free culture kind of as a sideline and kind of hide it from the masses
Nope,
forever.
Can't do it. It won't it's gonna break out.
Well, I mean, look at YouTube already. I think
It's
for the
already
average
breaking
person,
out. The other thing,
No, look in the 80s, right? 90s, shows like Getting Hit in the Nuts, home video, anything like that. Bob Saget. Shows like that were very popular.
They
and
were.
now, even like your mom is going to watch videos of people getting hit in the nuts on YouTube rather than watch a TV show where there's ads and then occasional nut shots.
only grandma will watch nut shots on TV.
But even grandmas
there
will
are
find out
some
about
grandmas
YouTube.
who can watch nut shots on YouTube, but most of them watch nut shots on TV.
They used to say that porn was the driver of technology. I don't think that's true anymore.
It's always funny when we're in a hotel and like the news is showing YouTube videos. It's like
that
what?
happens a lot.
It's weird.
Even CNBC, it's kind of
or
amazing.
they'll read tweets out
But
loud on the TV.
I put forth a new supposition. Forget, porn driving the industry. I don't think that exists anymore. I will argue that nut shots follow the real industry now. If you just follow where people get videos of cute animals and people getting hit in the nuts, wherever that is going, that is like the bulge ahead of the curve of the next trend of where people consume media.
The other thing is that even if, there's always the dual market will still last for quite a while before the nerd market takes over the whole show.
Yeah, I mean, look, music. The music
But
industry is still holding on to the bitter end and still hasn't disappeared.
Allowing the nerd market to go instead of fighting it is you're basically saying no to free marketing, right? How much has the non-nerd pony audience expanded because of the marketing influence and the promoting of the nerds, right? And it's not even just directly due to like I saw a funny pony video on YouTube, therefore I became a pony fan. There was nerds made funny pony videos, so magazines wrote articles about ponies that normal people read.
Magazines.
Yeah, right? But that's what normal people do is they read magazines. So it's like because the nerds are fair using the ponies get into the mainstream media more than they otherwise would have, thus increasing the other audience that
Now this allows
not
a weird
nerds.
other kind of market. Look at what Apple does with their apps. They'll let people make apps or submit apps that they won't accept. But if an app gets popular that adds some sort of core functionality, they'll basically just steal it and do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And companies that do this stuff with the nerd market and let the nerd fair use market thrive can do the same thing. Whoa, Derpy Hooves is popular. Gonna sell me a Derpy Hooves t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Someone made a funny comic that's really popular. I'm going to hire people to make a similar comic and sell it overseas.
Alrighty.
So yeah, it's interesting that Pony, of all the things it could have been that are pushing the fair use argument into mainstream media, it just happened to be the ponies.
Yep. I didn't do any news at all.
You can go.
Oh, okay.
I didn't stop anything.
I heard you clicking. It sounded like you were making a move.
I was just clicking.
So I want to be talking about, should be saved for Tuesday news, but it's too big. I want to talk about Nintendo Fair.
Oh my God. Interesting. This is the first Nintendo portable that neither of us bought the day it came out.
Yeah, well, since the Game Boy Color. I bought Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, DS, pretty much those three on the day they came out. All the SPs, DS Lites, they don't count.
I didn't get a Game Boy at first, but not because I didn't want one, because my mom wouldn't buy me one that
My brother
soon.
got a Game Boy Pocket, which is...
I got a Game Gear before I got a Game Boy.
Anyway, I never had the Game Boy.
Wow, I had the Game... Well,
My brother had the Game Boy Pocket and I had the Game Boy Color, but our friends had a Game Boy that I played a lot.
My brother had the Game Boy, and I had the Game Gear, and we'd trade back and forth.
Anyway, So if you don't know the news, basically the 3DS not to look so good. Oh. So they're dropping the price down to 180, which is from 250.
That's way early for Nintendo to do something like that.
Nintendo never drops the price that early on anything. Which
But yet
means
they're dropping the price, but the first-party good games people are waiting for aren't even out yet.
Yeah, it's like they should have kept the price up and put the games out. Then maybe some people would have bought it, right? For the game. The games are the reason people aren't buying it, not
But the
price.
thing is, the games, I don't even trust Nintendo to make the games I want anymore.
No kidding. And they're not on the horizon
I mean,
either.
to this day, what are the games I would play?
That's why I'm still not going to buy it for 180, because this still the only reason I'm not buying it is because there's no Advance Wars.
There, right now, Scott, there's 4 people in this apartment. If I was going to play a Nintendo game in rough order, I would play Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles.
Advance Wars, 4 Swords.
Yeah, 4 Swords. Maybe Mario Tennis, Mario Soccer.
Tennis.
Huh.
I think they announced Mario Kart 7, which is weird because there's more than 7 Mario Karts already existing.
Yeah. Brawl, I would play right now, maybe.
That's not bad. Anyway, so the point is they're lowering the price because 3DS not to look so good. Okay.
This isn't going to help.
What if you paid $250? Now it's like, what the fuck, Nintendo? They're giving you a consolation prize, which is actually, admittedly, a lot of virtual console games. They're giving you like a pile of virtual console games, both GBA and NES, like real ones.
Good on them, because Nintendo, for all its Japanese sensibility as a company, that is a very Japanese thing to do, to be like, basically apologize to the people who didn't get, basically who got screwed by you realizing that you fucked up.
Yeah. The other thing is, I wonder, right? So
Sony would never do anything like that. They just drop the price.
yeah, Sony, they gave everyone like one lousy game for the PSN out.
Microsoft would just flip you off.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe. Microsoft, it's kind of iffy what they would do.
No, they would.
They're moody.
They wouldn't drop the price because the price would have been already artificially low.
That's right. All right. So that's what I was gonna say. They dropped the price from 250 to 170, 180. Does that mean that they were making like a $70 profit and a 170 is still profitable?
Or are they going at a loss now?
Or are they going at a loss now? Because they're definitely at a profit before.
Now, if I were them, way from the beginning, I would have gone with the Razer model and I would have given up on the philosophy of making money on every console. I would have sold the 3DS cheap, and I would have really pushed the downloadable content for money, microtransactions.
Right, but the problem is their downloadable content is too much money.
Oh, I would have made it cheap. I would have made it like $1 for an NES game.
Right. So here's the other problem. They're giving you a fistful of virtual console games, but you know what? I have a piracy card in my regular DS that has every NES, every SNES, a ton of GBA, and a ton of DS games.
Never mind the fact that anyone with a PSP...
And every Game Boy game ever. And every Game Boy Color game ever. In
PSP
Japan
people
and
can do the
US.
same piracy.
Right. So here's what I would have done if I was Nintendo, right? Which they would never do in a million years. But this is the right strategy. Ready? You would sell the 3DS for the $250. Keep the price high. Put some flash memory in it, right? Because if you can afford to drop $70 off the price, you can afford to put 32 gigs of flash in the 3DS.
Yeah, 32 gigs of flash is effectively free.
Right. So you put 32 gigs of flash in the 3DS built in, and on that 32 gigs of flash extra, you put every virtual console game. Every game that you have the legal right to put on there, you put on there for free.
That's
NES,
a good idea.
SNES.
A little too ultra. You got to be a little more evil here if you want to really make money.
No, I'm not done yet. So people paying $250, which is $70 profit, right? Big time. Everyone's like, oh shit. People would be lining up to buy that motherfucker.
I would have bought one like immediately if that were the thing.
And then, right, what you do is you still charge in the DSiWare, the downloadable area, the DSware, sort of the WiiWare equivalent indie games, and you got to allow the indie games in, obviously. We talked about that in the past.
They have Nintendo already.
Yeah, regular DS games, GBA games, GameCube games can run on that, right? You put all those games in there, not free, but the NES, SNES, Game Boy Color games, all free, period, all of them. You get everything. Right, in those 32 gigs, it's already installed. As soon as you buy the thing,
I would have been a little more subtle to make a little more money. What I would have done is made NES games free, the entire catalog for everyone, forever free.
Or
every game
if you want to make a little bit of money, here's what you can do. Right, you can say, yeah, okay, $10 gets you every NES game. $10 gets you every SNES. You make huge bundles for low prices on the oldest games in big, like that.
Yeah, but or do NES games free just because you got to have something free so people just buy this thing outright.
You could put the greatest NES hits on there for free, all the ones people really want to play, and then all the rest in a bundle for $10.
Or what I would do is make a subscription model where, NES games free, whatever, but everything else.
So Spotify,
So here's the-
$5 a month.
Five-
and as soon as you stop paying, all the games go away.
Yep, $5 or $10 a month, a relatively small amount, but not just on that device. If you pay for that,
You get it
you
on
log
the-
in,
you
you
get
log
it
into
on
a
the Wii.
computer, it works on your computer. Every device that they make or that is
Yeah,
open.
Wii, PC, DS, everything.
Hell, with them, I would try to make a deal with Microsoft and get it all in the XBLA, but you got to pay $10 a month for it.
I would make a controller that can work with Netflix and try to get the games into Netflix.
Oh, that would be eminently doable. The Roku could probably do it.
No shit.
The thing is, Nintendo is
Especially
married.
the old games.
But Scott, Nintendo is married to the hardware market. They're going to
They're
be.
also married to the idea that games should cost a lot of money.
I believe Nintendo is going to be the last proprietary console in the world.
Maybe.
I think Sony consoles, PS3, I think they're going to slowly disappear or edge toward commodity. I think Microsoft eventually just, if you buy an Xbox, it's just a PC. Or you buy a PC that is, quote, Xbox certified, meaning it has the, whatever level of performance, and Xbox game will just work on either one.
Maybe.
And I think Nintendo is going to hold on to their proprietary bullshit until the bitter end. But if Nintendo were smart, they would do what Sega did and turn into an IP company primarily, and the only hardware I would sell would be portable hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And officially licensed controllers in the shape of NES, SNES, N64, GameCube controllers.
That's another thing. If Nintendo just made like PC compatible USB controllers,
Yeah.
of all their, stuff like that.
Nintendo has they're one of the few companies that has like such a wealth of intellectual property that it is like unnerving and ludicrous.
And
yet
they're
they
not
don't
taking
capitalize
advantage
on
of it all. Yeah, they should take a lesson from the ponies, and they should let Mario go free.
But anyway, things of the day, now that we're past the lounge.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Eh.
So remember a long time ago, I made a thing of the day, Garfield minus Garfield, which was basically someone was taking every Garfield comic, erasing Garfield, just leaving John, and that was the comic. And it turns out that Garfield without Garfield is not only funnier than Garfield, but it's one of the better comics I've ever read.
I wouldn't say that.
There's something great about it. It's basically the story.
It's the same thing over and over again. It's a little.
It's not really the same thing over and over. I was reading through it again, and it cracks me up. It's just basically one man's descent into lonely madness.
Yeah.
But so, this is obviously a borderline fair use, something we were just talking about. Well, it was announced at Comic-Con, and this is all legit. Jim Davis thinks that Garfield minus Garfield is hilarious. And Ballantine Books and Paws Inc., Random House, everyone got together, and Garfield minus Garfield is being released as a legit book with all the blessings of the people who own the Garfield copyright and Jim Davis.
Does any of that money go to the guy who came up with Garfield minus Garfield, or does all of it go to Jim Davis?
It looks like it's going to the people who made Garfield minus Garfield and everybody.
Oh.
They're all getting money. It's a legit, straight up just deal that they made.
So now here's the thing. This might sound a little extreme, right? But actually, I would say I would have no problem with all the money going to the guy who came up with the Garfield minus Garfield, because think of it this way.
Nah.
If you're Andy Warhol and you do Campbell soup cans, how much money should go to Campbell soup?
Nah.
$0, right? You wouldn't have a problem with that. So why would you have a problem? Who here thinks money should go to Campbell soup because of Andy Warhol selling a painting?
Put your hand down, Chef Boyardee.
Right? So along those lines, that is pretty much what is going on here.
Well, the other argument you could make is that what the guy...
I'm sure someone out there is saying, yeah, Campbell soup should get money.
Is that what the guy did, right? Is removing Garfield from Garfield? Because he didn't have the rights to it, and because it was... You'd have to argue whether or not it was parody. What if someone makes parody of your work that consists of nothing but your work with something removed? If you take your own work and remove the same thing, is that your copyright or that person's copyright?
It's what part of it is copyrighted. The original copyright, the original artwork is it's any piece of art has parts, and you can't just get a copyright for the whole thing. It's artwork. Look at the movie credits, right?
That's because different people make those things.
But
if I publish a comic that I wrote and drew, it's my copyright for the entire work.
Right.
Not separated between the different bits.
That is true. But now if I remove, say, Spider-Man from Spider-Man, I take a Spider-Man comic and I erase all the Spider-Mans, right? You get credit for all of it except for the removal of the Spider-Mans, which is mine.
Yeah, so how do we sort out the money situation there?
I'm not really going to be making money on it because I don't think you should be able to do anything commercial with a fair use. Otherwise, it's
here's my argument. I think you should, but it should be just like music, statutory royalties.
Statutory royalties, fine.
Because I think the benefit of anyone being able to use anyone's intellectual property, but if they do it commercially, they're forced to pay, I think that would cause more works to be made than any other alternative.
Yeah, because imagine if at YouTube, instead of you got a takedown notice, you had PayPal $1 to have this video go back up.
Yeah. Actually, that would probably make a lot of people who make music a lot of money. Probably more money than they make from album sales.
Yeah.
Food for thought. But anyway.
Or like instead of $1, it could be like 1/10 of a cent per view.
Oh, that could get bad really quick, though. But then again, that's only for commercial use.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you have ads on the video or something like that, if the video is not making you any money, then it's just in your channel for free with no ads on it, then you don't have to pay anything.
So anyway, Garfield minus Garfield, the book, is coming out on the 30th anniversary of Garfield.
Do you want it?
Kinda, actually.
Then pre-order on Amazon.
I probably will. I'm reading through Garfield minus Garfield again online, and I really dig this. There's one where John just is crying alone in his house for 3 panels.
Oh, wow. If you search for it on Amazon, the first listing is Garfield minus Garfield, paperback. The second listing is the same thing again. The third listing is Perry Bible Fellowship Almanac.
Similar humor.
And then Bunny Suicides.
I laugh at Garfield minus Garfield for a lot of the same reasons I laugh at the Perry Bible Fellowship.
Oh, it actually says Garfield minus Garfield by Jim Davis.
Huh. Interesting.
Oh, no, with a forward by Don, whatever, creator of Garfield minus Garfield.net. So they didn't give him a credit.
Yeah, I didn't read the full details of it.
I'm looking at the book on Amazon. That's why I found this.
Yeah. Anyway, I just think this is cool.
All right. So Alan Moore, he's often grumpy and crazy. Almost. But
Sky's blue.
But he has an interview with him that's actually pretty damn good. They ask him about a lot of stuff, and he just gives answers, and he's not that disagreeable, I think, because they don't ask him, they don't dive in on things, But you learn a lot about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, what he's up to, and what he's thinking.
Huh.
And it's probably one of the best Alan Moore interviews I've read, because it's the least crazy, and it's just a normal, good, high-quality interview.
Do they focus on anything
He talks
in
about
particular?
why his magazine is on hold and stuff like that.
All right.
And the last question they ask him is because he's a UK guy, obviously, right? The last question they ask him is about how they're cutting money for libraries, and he's like, "Oh, it's indefensible," blah blah blah. And the thing he says is the very last thing he says in the whole interview, which is what's really awesome,
is I gotta go now.
No, he's like, "I'm all in favor of anti-cuts demonstrations, and it's always very pleasing to see so many V for Vendetta masks in the crowd. I'm very proud of those boys and girls." It's like, well, I'm sure, he likes, that they're protesting against, government cutting libraries.
Well, I think I would say more that he probably likes the fact that people were, at least to some degree, affected by either his comic or the movie he hated based on his comic.
Yeah, the movie, he would say about that movie that it doesn't exist, much like you say.
Yeah.
Many things don't exist.
Well, the sad truth is that M. Night Shyamalan died before he made the Avatar Airbender movie.
But isn't he making something else, or is that like how Tupac makes more music?
Yeah. It's funny because Tupac has come up in 3 unrelated conversations in the last week with me.
Really?
Yeah. Like a coworker,
Fine, it's how Elvis makes more music.
Okay. Elvis has not come. No, Elvis did come up last week.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
They're famous. They're gonna come up.
Yeah. Tupac, to be honest, I didn't know who Tupac Shakur was until he died.
Really?
I just didn't know.
I knew who he was because on the school bus, they played radio stations that played his music. So I knew who he was.
Our school bus didn't play the radio.
Whoa, that must have been boring as all fuck.
You know what? I had a Walkman.
Yeah, I didn't bring my Walkman
and a
to school.
Game Boy.
I didn't bring that to school either.
I brought them both to school.
Oh.
Also, my mom's cell phone.
You mean a Game Gear?
I wouldn't bring the Game Gear to school. I didn't want it. It was like $200. That was more money than I could conceive.
Mm-hmm.
So in the meta moment, we are going to be at the Penny Arcade Expo in Seattle in about a month.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit. And then you know what? 7 months from now, Penny Arcade Expo in Boston.
Oh, shit.
The biggest thing we can announce is that, we're doing our panel, a new panel, Discover the Forgotten Masters. But independently, we're doing something different involving teaching large groups of people to play board games, German-style board games like Modern Art and Agricola. So, if this goes well, and you'll want to check this out, there's basically a tabletop workshop room being run by the people who run the tabletop department.
Was this 100% confirmed?
The workshop room is confirmed.
Okay.
There's all this stuff that's going to be going on in there. It's kind of an experiment. And if it goes well at PAX Prime, the hope, and this is just me speculating now, don't take this to be anything official from Penny Arcade, because we are just speakers. We're not in any way affiliated with them otherwise. Will be bigger, more intense at PAX East because there's more space there.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the indie RPG people live over here on our coast, the best coast, and it's easier to get them to go and do stuff.
East Coast is best coast. Rhyming with best doesn't make you best.
Well, no, because it's the West Coast and the best coast.
That's right.
I guess there is a coast at the bottom, too.
What?
I mean, Texas has that coastline.
What? It's not even in the country.
So, yeah, otherwise, book club, own show, join the forum, follow our Twitter, follow the Geeknights Rim and the Geeknights YouTube channels, because YouTube accounts, because both of them will have stuff coming in a big way. I should have, probably in the next few days at latest, game mechanics and mechanism design as we ran it at PAX East last year.
Mm-hmm.
I should also relatively soon have How to Win at Games up, and we're going to try to start putting pretty much all of our lectures online.
We're about to go to PAX and do another one.
Yeah, and we're going to film it and try to get it online. Because
and then MagFest is coming.
I'm trying to get out of the plan we used to do of do like 3 panels at PAX East and then do the same 3 at Prime. Because, I don't know, I want to do more. Like, the ideas we have for panels are starting to outstrip the new conventions we have, and we've got too many old cons that want the same old stuff every year.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, MagFest, I think, is going to let us do exactly what we want.
Hopefully.
Yep, and New York Comic Con, all that stuff is coming up. I can't really announce anything yet.
Lots of stuff is
yeah.
It's our e-commerce situation.
I don't have new t-shirts yet.
Okay. I don't know.
That's it?
What about the worst webcomic contest?
Oh, right, the worst webcomic contest. When should we set the deadline?
Whenever we do the episode.
When should we do the episode?
The next time we need a Wednesday episode, and we don't have one.
All right. We'll probably have, I don't know, within a month or so. I'll tell you what. Submit your non-Control-Alt-Delete entries soon, because if 2 people submit the same comic, whoever submitted it first wins if that comic wins.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can stop submitting Control-Alt-Delete. We got it.
We said that already.
I got to make sure. The level of hate you guys have for CAD is kind of amazing.
I never even really read it, so I'm gonna have to figure out what this hate is all about as part of the episode.
Well, as far as I can tell, it's about Doom Guy, and he cries in a hospital.
Doom Guy.
Yes, no, someone posted.
Doom Guy doesn't cry. He doesn't even have eyes.
There were
got a
mashups
helmet.
of that the comic where Control-Alt-Delete famously had that a very special Control-Alt-Delete.
Okay.
Where he kind of went into dark, serious, real-world stuff out of nowhere.
All right.
Personal stuff. And people mash up that comic with Doom Guy or My Little Pony.
Oh, whoa. So wait, so a guy makes like, it's one thing to mash up like, a Penny Arcade, but it's like if they made a very serious Penny Arcade that was like, someone died and they made like a, something.
The last time
the
they
thing
did
is
that,
when Penny Arcade does that, like Gary Gygax dies, they make a joke about it, rolling in his grave.
Yeah, but at the same
it's
time.
like they already made the joke on it, but if they did it actually seriously.
Well, because look at what they did. If you make a joke like that, that's the kind of joke that where Gary Gygax, where he's still alive, would laugh.
He would love that shit. I bet he is rolling in his grave.
Because seriously, as much as we rag
rolling in his grave,
as much as we rag on D&D, Gary Gygax is kind of a god.
Kind of.
So, like we said, shows about horror. So Frank Miller is famous for a lot of.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was saying horror, and then I realized it kind of sounds like horror.
Sure.
And I was gonna make a joke about that, but no. We're actually kind of like we both are into horror as a genre.
Kinda.
Kinda. And I've gotten out of it as I've gotten older because I become jaded by it, and things that used to scare me don't scare me anymore.
Well, it's weird. It's like this total reversal. When I was really little, I wouldn't watch anything that was supposed to be scary or might have been
Oh,
scary.
you're like the Bill Cosby, like the chicken heart that ate New York City?
Yeah, like even stuff that like maybe wasn't actually scary, but like, appeared to have scariness in it, based on the cover or the title or who knows what.
Nope.
I would avoid because I was.
Well, did you ever have this situation where you'd be in like Blockbuster or Mammoth Video and you walk into the horror section and all the covers are like skeleton with daggers coming out of its eyeballs?
I don't remember that really.
Because in the 80s, like every horror movie had a particular like graphic design on the cover that was particularly horrifying to like a 6-year-old.
For me, it was more like, I was really little and it'd be like Alien. I'd be like, oh shit, I ain't watching that motherfucker. Right? But then eventually it was just like, yeah, I can watch anything and it's not scary.
Yep. See, I had a slightly different experience from most people because my mom, actually both my parents were really into horror.
My mom is really into horrors.
But as a result, my mom was like, I was reading Lovecraft probably early to mid elementary school.
I don't think my
Lovecraft was
mom really
thing.
knows who Lovecraft is, but she's into the more generic horror. She loves, vampires, but she doesn't like, she's like, fuck that Twilight shit. She's like,
Nosferatu
yeah,
style.
she's like, give me some black and white real Dracula who like, shreds you up.
Blah.
Yeah.
But the two, like, of my early literature when I was reading books, the two, like, real deal long books that I read
Monster Blood 2.
were The Hobbit
Yeah.
and Stephen King's Skeleton Crew, which was a collection of short horror stories.
Oh, you remember those fucking books, Scary Stories 1, 2, 3 in a box?
Oh my God, the stories weren't that scary. The art scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. There's something
I
about
think
that.
actually, now that I think back, that may have been the turning point from scared of things to not scared of things.
But
right?
was it that you were scared of those books and then you overcame it?
I think it was pretty much like my memory is that those books were there because they were popular, and I didn't want to go near them because I thought they were scary. But then I eventually bought them and read them, and then they weren't scary.
Well, they were kind of funny now that I read them again because
They're
I have
really
all
stupid.
three.
I have the little box set. They're stupid.
Some of them were creepy for how they were portrayed.
I'd have to go back, but I imagine it's a He-Man situation.
There's one weird one, Mitai Doty Walker.
How do you remember these things?
How do you not remember anything?
Why would I remember some books I read when I was in like 5th grade?
Scott, name more than 3 characters from, I don't know, Foundation, the book you just read.
Harry Seldon.
All right, Harry Seldon.
The guy who's a traitor.
Yeah. Traitor or traitor?
Trader.
What's his name?
I don't know.
No.
If you told me it, I would say that's the one.
Who was the newspaper guy?
The newspaper guy.
Yeah, what was his name?
Newspaper guy.
Name any girl.
There really weren't
Yeah.
girls.
That was my joke. I was building up to that. I was like, who's the girl in Foundation?
There weren't.
Who's the girl in Asimov? But yeah, I was reading and watching horror from an extremely young age, and even like H.P. Love, or not H. I keep saying H.P. Lovecraft. In this case,
I didn't
Alfred
know Lovecraft
Hitchcock.
was until I got to college.
Yeah, but like, me and Greg were the ones who were really into Lovecraft before we got
Alex
to
knew
RIT.
it. Lovecraft.
Yeah, of course, Alex.
Anyway.
But I was just really into horror my whole life, and I remember like Night of the Living Dead and like all the Jason movies and the Freddy movies.
Yeah, I actually didn't watch those when I was very young.
Really?
Yeah.
You ever seen all of them? Like, have you seen like Halloween?
Which ones?
Halloween?
Maybe.
Really?
I don't know.
Don't remember Halloween?
Maybe.
That's the one that has the well, anyway. So you
If I
probably
saw
haven't
it, I
seen
saw it on like, TV in high school on HBO or something like that.
So what was the first, like, do you remember a movie that you actually did see that scared you as a kid?
Yeah,
Like,
Boogity.
Mr. Boogedy? Boogedy. Boogedy.
Now, all I remember from it,
Boogedy, boogedy, boo.
these are the scenes I remember from it in my brain, right? I don't know if these were real scenes from it or not. They're just my memory,
all right, this
right?
ought to be good.
They're like in a kitchen, and there's like a scary cape and a hat on the coat rack.
Yep.
That was okay. That's a real memory.
Yep.
Guy floating down the hallway, covered in a blanket, but he's floating,
Yep.
and he's saying boogity boogity. Just kidding. Because like if you say it 3 times, he shows up like Beetlejuice.
Yeah, or it's him possessing you. I kind of forget.
Yeah.
I remember when the ghosts show up and the housewife in the family like doesn't know what to do, so she like invites him in for coffee, and she's not sure if they can drink coffee.
And I remember some
might have
scene
been
at
the
like
sequel.
a carnival at night outside, and they're
That I think was also the sequel.
running. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember the end where they suck Mr. Boogedy up with the shop vac.
I do not remember this.
Really? There's something. Mr. Boogedy was kind of scary to a little kid, but as
It's
an
so
adult,
weird because there were movies that were like comedies that had horror elements, like say Ghostbusters
or Beetlejuice.
Ghostbusters and Beetlejuice are both comedies, but they had like visually things that could be horror movies, scary ghost, monster, underworld
And both
stuff.
of them, at least
but
for
they
me-
weren't horror movies at all. They weren't meant to scare. They might have had some things to surprise, and they had ghosts, but they were comedies straight up. But when I was a kid,
as a kid, this is the weird thing.
it doesn't
Both
come across the comedy at all. I didn't laugh at Ghostbusters when I was a kid.
Ghostbusters and-
Dickless. I didn't get that joke.
Well, I got it, but like there were funny moments. I remember laughing.
That's
but
true.
both,
This
both
man
Ghostbusters
has no dick.
and Beetlejuice, I took them as like straight up
And
dramas.
Ghostbusters 2 was a little scary when I was a kid. Vigo, I was scared.
Yeah, Vigo was pretty creepy.
Yeah. Ghostbusters 1, I wasn't scared.
Yeah,
But Vigo, I was
Beetlejuice was like
scared.
I took Beetlejuice at such face value. I thought it was just like supernatural thriller.
Yeah,
I didn't get that it was a joke.
I didn't get that it was a joke either.
Kind of like how I didn't get that Project A-ko was a joke. I was like, oh, she has superpowers. Awesome.
That's when it happens when you're a little kid.
Yeah.
You get it wrong.
Kids just don't get it. Don't try to beat games. Just kind of don't color inside the lines.
Yeah, so when you're trying to show your kid something, don't show it to him before he'll get it.
No, show it to them before they get it because it makes for the memories that shape them into the people they are today.
So they can make a podcast 20 years
Yeah.
from now.
I think what really scared me as a kid originally when I was really little, like movies that would make me start, were the horror movies that would show the psycho killer, like it'd always be like someone's laying on a bed and then a knife just like comes up through the mattress and like gets him.
Well, that's surprise. See, that's the thing is
No, but as a little kid, it would get me.
Of course it would get you.
Not in the
It's
movie.
Still,
I'd see the movie and I'd be fine. I'd be like, whatever, ha. And then I'd go to bed and I'd think like, what if a knife just came up through my mattress?
No, see surprise like that, right? The element of surprise, jump out and go boo. That actually still makes me go ooh, because you're surprising someone. You can walk up.
like in Play Dead, where they played that super fucking loud noise like a second after he turned off the lights.
Yeah, you can walk up behind me and grab my shoulder in the dark when I'm not paying attention. I'll go because that's what people do.
Yeah,
But it doesn't scare me or cause me to lose sleep.
it's funny the different reactions.
And it's so annoying that you go to see a lot of horror movies and all they do is jump out and go boo. And it's like, really? That's all you got is jump out and go boo? Wow, great movie making, guys.
What was that movie? The one that the angry James Rolfe talked about. That it was like the cat people or the panther or something, where it built up to where there would be a jump out and go boo, and then there'd be a noise like a boo was gonna happen, but there'd be no boo. And the tension wouldn't resolve, and the movie would just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what movie it was, but I actually like old horror movies because they're usually more like the horror of the human situation.
Well, I mean, I like them, right? You know, they're more horrific Twilight Zone episodes, you know,
Yep.
Frankenstein's, Dracula's, those sorts of things. I love those old horror movies, right? But the thing is, none of them there really isn't a movie that causes any actual fear or horror in me.
Well, it's hard to do that because
anymore.
the only way to elicit actual fear, not other emotions like surprise, disgust, anything like that, but actual fear, you either have to like be so immersed in the movie that what's going on is contextual.
Like that you believe you're in danger?
Yeah.
For real?
Or you have to be a little kid and see Child's Play and happen to have a My Buddy in the closet.
And believe you're in danger.
Yeah.
It's really that's really much what it comes down to. To actually feel real fear, you have to believe truly that you are in some danger. Like you watch something with aliens in it, you got to believe that aliens are coming to get you.
That's
Or
why
that's
what
a
I want-
serious possibility.
What I want out of a haunted house, because I enjoyed haunted houses as a little kid. Like, I loved them. But they never scared me, and I went into them because I was obsessed with watching other people flip the fuck out.
I don't understand people who like they scream in a haunted house. I'm like,
Even
really?
Play
How
Dead,
old are you?
like half the audience was like shrieking uncontrollably at some of the things that happened.
yeah, but yeah, I got Play Dead is mostly funny.
It is mostly funny.
It's so great.
I
And
started-
It's much better than any haunted house at a carnival.
I started when the rice fell on me out of nowhere. I was like, what the fuck? Oh, rice.
They're throwing rice on everybody.
Yep.
Yeah. It's sort of like, rice. Lol. Good job, guys. Nice one.
But I gotta say, the other great thing about horror movies is that even if a kid is old enough to not really be that afraid anymore, if you got a younger brother, Nothing's better
Or younger sibling.
than taking your my buddy after he has seen and you have seen Child's Play and just putting it in his closet while he's asleep. Just going back to bed, not saying anything
No,
about
wait
it.
for him to fall asleep. Put my buddy in the bed, then leave.
No, because
Then when he wakes up, it's there.
no,
and he didn't
that's
have it there to begin
Well, no, if you're gonna
with.
do that, you suspend it from the ceiling over him.
That's for an A+ grade.
Yeah. Even better though, you put it in the closet, right? Because then there's no evidence that you did anything. Even for the parents, they won't remember whose closet it was in or why it moved or whatever. You basically get away scot-free. You put it in his bed, you're gonna get caught.
So,
It's better to not get caught.
what's gonna happen? Oh, I put a toy in his bed. Bad me.
I don't know. When I was a little kid, there was this general wanting to avoid punishment, even if punishment was never actually forthcoming for anything.
Yeah.
You know, Bill Cosby style.
If I have kids ever, I'll be very just with them, and they won't get in trouble for doing something like that. They will
You
only
actually
get-
want justice, not just quiet.
That's right. You know I want justice, but I also want quiet.
Yeah, I think when those two, that'll be burning wheel style. Your belief will be justice before quiet. You'll have to choose between justice and quiet.
I'll take both. I'll have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah, you realize burning wheel, the equivalent of that is failing.
Because the thing I think adults don't realize is that even though it might take 10 minutes to get justice, justice brings quiet. Because once they realize, because the kids they see, the fair thing was done, they'll stop yelling and complaining and say, why, no, you're there. They're yelling and screaming because they're not getting justice. If you give them the justice, it takes 5 minutes, then...
Not always. When I was a little kid, right, my little brother one day comes into my room, like we're supposed to be in bed. He comes into the room, and he puts his arm out, and he starts punching himself in the arm until he has a bruise.
Yep.
Then he screams, "Mom!" And I got in so much shit.
But that's because he wasn't looking for justice.
Yeah.
He was looking for quiet.
Scott, would you ever believe a kid who said, yeah, he punched himself until he got a bruise?
No, but I would take the time to explain it to them, right? For that, look, this is the evidence I have, and I'm the judge and the jury because we don't have a judge and a jury,
Well, and the
right?
executioner.
So I'm like, look, if this is all the evidence I have to go on, right? What ruling can I possibly make? And explain to them why that whatever ruling I have to hand down in sentence. So that they can't really complain beyond that. And I'm like, look, it's out of my hands. I want justice, but that's all I can do because that's the only information I have. Does anyone want to submit any evidence? And it's like testimony is not evidence because you could be lying, and we don't have lie detectors are bullshit. And, it's like you take the time to explain this, and then what can they possibly do? They'll be like, oh, you had the best justice you could get given our limited resources. So shut up.
So, horror, because I guess we got onto child rearing, which
Yeah.
we're both experts on. So,
Yeah, right.
What's your favorite horror?
My favorite horror?
Yeah, maybe separate from the best, like your favorites.
Something. Well, I guess something that would be called horror that I like.
Yeah, like a
the
genre or a
most.
work. Like to this day, I really like Stephen King's Skeleton Crew because it's a bunch of short stories and they're all very mundane situations turned horrific by strangeness going on that is unexplained or ill-explained. Like one of them was called Where the Deer Are, and a girl wakes up to go to school and just no one's around and there's deer everywhere and just no people. And that's kind of it.
All right.
Yeah. I like that kind of like sort of existential horror. Like, I mean, Lovecraft did that very well of you don't really know what they're afraid of. You can't explain it. It's never described. The best you've got is this kind of aching uneasiness that everything you've ever believed and everything that could possibly be to existence is meaningless and nothing matters. And the best case scenario is eternal torment in some distant, forgotten reality.
I don't know. My favorite horrors is.
I mean, Ichi the Killer isn't horror. That's just like torture porn.
I think what I like the most is probably the sort of horror where it's like you're not sure if there really is a monster or not, right? It's
You
like,
should read The Terror.
it's like there's people and something fucked up is happening, and it could be that the people are crazy. It could be that there's a person doing something like a Scooby-Doo situation where, right?
Event Horizon, maybe?
But then there's also maybe it is really some sort of horrible monster, and like it doesn't appear, but maybe sometimes you think it appears, but it doesn't really, and the people are freaking out.
That would be an interesting video game to make. Make a story kind of based game, or however you make it, where
like you never see the monster, but you see evidence of a monster and the movie leads you to interpret it as evidence of a monster or some sort of ghost or whatever it is. But you could potentially explain it as a person up to no good or a coincidence or the weather.
What if you make a video game?
A crazy person who's seeing things.
Because remember, Eternal Darkness had that sanity meter, but that was just like meta silliness that would happen.
Yeah, it didn't work.
What if you made a game where it's some sort of like detective mystery, let's say, but maybe you kill people or the reality that you were presented with is not always consistent. And you will eventually get to the point where you start like killing monsters, but then the game kind of slowly makes you realize that they aren't monsters and you're the murderer.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of games like that already where there's some, sometimes what you're looking at is a hallucination and sometimes what you're looking at is for real. Right? And that's because the main character is the crazy person, which I explained as one of the possibilities.
It was you all along.
There's plenty of movies like that, too, where sometimes you'll see the movie from a perspective of a person, and sometimes it'll be something the person's seeing that's not real, and sometimes it will be something that's real, and sometimes it'll be the person seeing something not real, but part of it was real and part of it wasn't. So, like, maybe they'll see a monster and attack it, and then when they're all done hallucinating, they'll see, like, evidence that they attack something.
Tom Hanks was in a movie about that.
What movie?
Really? You don't know? You don't know what I'm referring to right now at all. Okay, we'll talk about that after the show. I'll leave that up to the listeners.
I might have seen it.
I almost guarantee you have. You probably just don't, because Tom Hanks was so young.
Maybe.
Anyway. But... what was the movie I was just thinking of? Because Event Horizon kind of has like what happened to these people mystery going on.
Those are always because I love that when horror like on its own, right? It's like you can't really scare me. Jump out and go boo works on me. Like I go ooh, but then I get surprised, but it's lame, and I'm like, oh, big deal. You surprised me. Good job, guys. And I guess gore is kind of silly at this point. Even the extreme Ichi the Killer kind of stuff is kind of like, lols. So it's like horror on its own doesn't work. You have to combine horror with something else that's also good, and then you can get like added powers, right? So you can combine horror with sci-fi to get an alien, which is still awesome. Or you can combine horror with adventure, or combine horror with mystery, right? And then you get something going on. And what's even worse are things that are like considered horror that aren't. Like, is a vampire movie really horror? It's like just because a vampire is sort of a monster, does that make it horror? Just because a Frankenstein is a classic universal horror monster, does that mean that any Frankenstein movie is horror? It's like they're kind of silly, a lot of them.
So Scott, for what you described of what you like in horror fiction.
Is the parts that aren't horror.
You really need to read The Terror, that book I was reading before, Dan Simmons.
Uh-huh.
You know what it's about, right?
Yeah, it's about the boat in the cold.
Yeah, it's about, two boats that go up into the Arctic.
That's the Hyperion guy, right? Or not? No, it's the Napoleon guy. Or is it? I don't remember.
So the story is basically, it's what happened to these people. And there's a monster, but maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to spoil anything. It is exactly everything you just said you like about horror.
Uh-huh.
I can lend it to you, though it kind of smells because it's an old book that I got in a used bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll reveal for everyone.
Yeah, it is the Hyperion guy.
Tom Hanks was in Mazes and Monsters.
Never heard of it.
Really? It's about how Dungeons & Dragons makes you go crazy and kill people.
I never heard of this.
You could argue that it is kind of one of the causes of the Dungeons & Dragons hysteria.
I never heard of this ever. I didn't know there was a movie.
Really?
Nope.
Maybe we should watch it and do a show on it.
That sounds like a good idea.
It's a terrible movie.
I'm sure it is. It's from the year
1982.
It's as old as us.
Yes. Tom Hanks was like 26 when he was in it.
Yeah, but meanwhile, if you look at this movie, the DVD cover, it looks just like him. Like he looks now.
That's a picture of him from now because they re-released it to try to make money.
It says right here in the caption, the cover were present in the movie, and the picture of Tom Hanks is far more recent than 1982. I guess they just wanted to make him recognizable on the DVD cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a mixed relationship with Japanese horror because a
Yeah,
lot of
that's
it,
another
a lot
thing
of it is just like spooky mystery, where it almost edges more toward fantasy or sci-fi
Yeah,
or torture porn.
It is weird how horror from different countries varies a great deal in like how it goes.
I really dig, just from watching all the Monster Madness with James Rolfe, it seems like Spanish and like Portuguese horror and Italian horror is some of the most fun.
Yeah, definitely the most fun.
Maybe not the best, but the most fun.
Yeah, because it sort of has that campiness to it.
But at the same time,
never get out of
it's
the
so
80s.
like allegorical and metaphorical and so overwrought.
Yep. Yeah, I know, but like it's like every country has like these different things. I guess different things scare different people, right? Which
It makes sense.
But it's like they're, I guess jump out and go boo scares anybody. But it's like in terms of the non-jump out and go boo, something that might be silly to us might be frightening to, another culture. But whereas, humor seems to be a little bit more universal, right?
But at the same time,
Not entirely.
British humor stands out very distinct from American humor in many
It does,
ways.
but you still laugh at the British humor,
Yeah.
right? Whereas, if
But is that just because of the accent?
but if British horror
Would
might
Monty
not be
Python
funny,
still be funny if it was just completely an American accent?
why don't we do it?
Just redo all the Monty Python stuff with just normal.
Let's just dub over Monty Python skits.
And see if people still laugh.
Yeah,
We need better voices than us.
We gotta act. Just you act, but you act without a British accent.
Yeah, we need different voices from us. Of course, we did that.
Let's have Miku and friends do
we
it.
did that Shakespearean Pulp Fiction that one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, do we need to keep going with the show?
I don't know. I haven't really seen horror recently that's gotten me going.
Well, because I think the thing is nowadays, all the horror movies that you see, at least in the U.S., that are big and popular are like these, like the Saw, which I've never seen any of those. But from what I can tell, it's pretty much just like, dude saws people up. Yeah.
No, it's more, all the sort of like hypothetical moral situation. Like, all right, you're locked in a room. There's another guy. He's tied up. There's a gun. The door will only unlock if the other guy dies. Otherwise, you're going to be locked in there until you both starve to death.
How do they tie those situations like that into an actual cohesive plot? Or is it just scene and then another scene and then another scene and they're not related to each other?
They're related enough.
Because, you can't have just that scene for 90 minutes.
Well, you can have a bunch of those scenes that are tied together by a flimsy plot.
Yeah, the flimsy plot. That's exactly what I was just saying. Is that
I've not
how
actually
could the
seen
plot be non-flimsy?
any of the Saw movies all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen scenes from Saws.
Would you count like Silence of the Lambs as horror in any way?
That, you know what? I would argue that is thriller.
Yeah, it's hard to, but it's like...
I've seen some people also say that terror is a separate genre from horror. Terror is like...
Well, there's so many horror subgenres, too.
I know, but they argue
it's
that
one
at
of
the
those
high
things
level,
where the word
there's
almost doesn't even mean
there's
anything.
horror, terror, thriller, action, which is separate from thriller. Thriller is like halfway between action and horror.
Mm-hmm.
And terror is more like I don't know, falling down could almost be because someone is terrorizing.
It's true. But it's not terrifying to watch it.
No, it isn't. Terrifying. Avatar: The Last Airbender.
See, I like to categorize, things, not based, because like too many people categorize things based on the aesthetic or other things like that.
Yeah, like
you gotta
it's horror
categorize
it's horror because it has a werewolf in it.
Yeah.
That's how Americans seem to do it.
But it's like American Werewolf in London.
More of a
or Teen Wolf. It's like not hard, dude.
What about Teen Boat? I mean, he's a wereboat. Does that make it horror?
Yeah, no, you got to categorize it based on the primary emotion that is instilled in the viewer.
But then by that logic,
and if that changes
Scott, by that logic, Clifford with Martin Short is clearly a horror film.
Sure, whatever. But if you use that, the problem is that something might be different genres based on the viewer, not based on the content. So you have to judge it based on the intended emotion of the creator. The primary intended emotions of the creator, right? So if it was created with the intent to frighten, even if now 50 years later it is silly and corny, you have to put it in the horror category, all right? But
But then if we do that, I mean, the Monsters movie is kind of horror.
it wasn't intended to frighten anyone.
I would argue that it kind of was.
No.
And when was the last time you saw? All right, Ernest Scared Stupid.
Was it entirely a comedy?
I would argue it fits the horror genre almost more. It's more horror than comedy, partly because Ernest P. Worrell, not funny.
That's for sure. But that's an entirely
Even
separate
though
thing.
somehow when
Just
I was
because
a kid,
you don't,
when I was a little kid,
it's intended emotion, not succeeded
I
emotion.
think horror was intended in addition to comedy.
You could call it a horror comedy then. Go nuts.
But as a kid, for some reason, Ernest Goes to Camp was like one of my favorite movies when I was really young.
Never really big Ernest fan.
Neither was I, except for Ernest Goes to Camp. Have you seen Ernest Goes to Camp?
If I did, I didn't remember it.
Really? It has one pretty
All
good...
I remember is that Ernest was this dopey guy and he was in stuff.
Yeah?
That's all I remember. Gonna end on that?
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.